At number 10, we have Singapore. Singapore is small, but the government has a firm implementation of the laws and policies. Any wrong move can cause a person to be fined. Like spitting in a public area, for instance, you can be fined for that. Also, if you smoke in public areas, you are most likely to get into some trouble with the law. Even wearing an inappropriate dress in public can also land a person in jail. However, Singapore's strict adherence to the rules has resulted in a world-class economy with living standards that are way higher than many other nations. In at the number 9 spot, we have Japan. People believe that for many years, the feudal system that was in place in Japan still has its influence on the structure and workings of the modern government. The hierarchy of authority can be found in almost any structure in the country, including in the home, of course, in the school system, office and workplaces, you name it, it's all there. So pretty much everybody respects the person who is superior to them. All of the companies in the country adhere to the strict law that all employees from the CEO down to the janitor are supposed to excel in their work. Number 8 leads us to China. In the midst of territorial disputes with its neighbors, China has projected a very positive image by being open to other nations. However, one must keep in mind that China is still a communist country. Any person or agency who gives rise to anti-government propaganda, well, they're silenced pretty much immediately. The youth of the country are also deterred from being fascinated and influenced by Western culture and Western thought. And the media also is under control. Access to the internet has several restrictions, and websites like Google and social media platforms like Facebook are censored and blocked. Nobody is allowed to talk about rebellion or change or reform or anything like that in China. From there, let's move on to number 7, Cuba. The birthplace of Cuban cigars and the late Fidel Castro, it's primarily seen as a world-class vacation destination. But behind its beaches and Latin music and all of that, Cuba remains a communist country, and those who speak against the government, well, they face serious consequences. The internet is regularly screened, and writers who post anti-government sentiments will almost certainly face jail time if they're arrested. Cubans know how to party, of course. It's a great spot for vacationing. However, playing certain types of music, reggaeton music, well, it can be prohibited. From there, let's look at Equatorial Guinea at number 6. In the country, people are discouraged from learning how to read and write, according to many reports. Now, the rate of tourism, though, in the country is also very low due to certain factors. President Teodoro Obiang Nguema Basogo, he's a man that runs the country and has been in power since 1979. TV and radio stations are under the control of the government as well. Also, foreigners who are allowed to enter Equatorial Guinea are closely monitored and prohibited from filming scenes and conditions that portray any type of poverty. Number 5 leads us to Saudi Arabia. This country, of course, is deeply rooted in its laws, and these laws are based on the religion and traditions of the country. Social laws can be very strict, especially for visitors who are not necessarily familiar with the rules of the land and the culture there. For example, you should refrain from holding hands and any sort of public displays of affection. Also, alcohol is banned, and during Ramadan, the month of fasting, you should not have any water or food visible in public during this time, or even visible in your car, or you could risk being fined. Media, including books, newspapers, magazines, television and films, as well as online content, are also censored by Saudi Arabian government officials. The Saudi government closely monitors media and restricts it under official state law. Next, let's look at Eritrea. This country is located above the Horn of Africa and has been ruled by President Isaias Afwerki, who came into power in the year 1993. Now, the government has full control of the media and over the news, as well as control of who writes the news. No news can be broadcasted without approval from the president first, and the religion in the country is also controlled. Since 2004, Eritrea has been designated as a CPC, and what that means is that it's a country of particular concern under the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998, Section 402B, for having engaged in or tolerated particular severe violations of religious freedom. Coming in at number 3, we have Syria. Syria's violence has risen over the years as clashes between government and rebel forces have intensified. The Syrian regime has resorted to a nationwide communications blackout to curb anti-government protests, and communications via mobile phones as well as landline phones as well as internet access are restricted, and foreign news correspondents are also restricted, and media is very closely monitored. Syrian journalists who oppose the government can actually be targeted. From there, we look at Iran at number 2. The government of the country is based on religion and Sharia laws. Actions and propaganda against the government are illegal in Iran. Logging into social media websites such as Facebook and various different Google platforms, YouTube and whatnot, it's something that you should do with caution. VPNs aren't allowed in Iran. However, it's known that everybody uses them to use Facebook and YouTube and other websites that are blocked in Iran. Even the government is said to know this, but hey, you still gotta be pretty cautious when you're using those platforms. Women are supposed to wear hijabs and cover in public, and Western music is prohibited to be played or performed in public. The country coming in at the number 1 spot is North Korea. The communist country of North Korea accepts tourists from all over the world except tourists from South Korea as well as the United States. I never knew this. Also, personal guides that are called minders, they are assigned to every tourist that enters the country. They accompany tourists from the day that they enter to the day that they leave. Literally, they make sure that tourists do not break any rules and regulations of the country. They literally accompany you every single where you go. The administration has complete control over everything, including TV, radio, as well as publication companies. News and television content is censored, and only the ruling elite have access to the internet, and their online activities are tightly monitored. Traveling is also limited in the country, and intimate relations between unmarried couples are not allowed in North Korea. Women in the country are not allowed to wear pants, and the communist regime of North Korea, well, it has reportedly outlawed all but 15 non-socialist haircuts, and they have instead issued an order for proper hairstyles. So only certain hairstyles can be had in that country. Like, if you're a single guy and you're thinking about taking a stroll through a mall, well, you might have to think again. You see, many malls are families only zones, and single men will be turned back at the door before they even enter. So in order to be allowed in, a man actually has to be with either a female or some other type of family member. Okay, so if you're going to a public gathering outside in public, no, it's not happening. Not in Saudi Arabia. I mean, like, all sorts of public gatherings are completely banned. From just like celebrations about anything to like peaceful protests. No, not in public. In Saudi Arabia, not gonna happen. And you know, when we go shopping, it's just as much for the ladies as it is for guys, where we like to try on clothes to see if it fits well, to see if it actually looks good on our body. And that's how a lot of times we base what we buy at the stores. But you see, in Saudi Arabia, when a woman goes to a store and they see something that they like and they go to the dressing room, they can't try on the clothes because it's like the thought of a woman taking off her clothes in public makes everybody go nuts. So I'm sorry ladies, you'll just have to just buy it based on how it looks, and hopefully it fits well, and hopefully you like it when you get home. Now for all you lovebirds out there, you may not like this one, because florists in Saudi Arabia were actually forbidden from selling red roses on February 14th, which is Valentine's Day. As well as gift shops, they were actually forbidden from selling anything that was shaped like a heart, and girls were actually forbidden from wearing anything red to school. So if you actually broke this rule, you would risk being shut down. Like really, your store would get shut down by the Committee for the Promotion of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice. And you know, this group of people is often commonly referred to as the religious police. So yeah, if you're a female student, you went to school in a red shirt, boom, you're sent home. You gotta change that bad boy. Now, it was not until the year 2017 where shops were actually allowed to sell red roses. So the spirit of Valentine's Day now actually has a glimmer of hope to survive and thrive in a country like Saudi Arabia. Now let's talk about women actually being forbidden to drive cars in Saudi Arabia. Now there's a fatwa, which is an Islamic ruling, that states that women should not drive because if they do so, it could lead to the removal of their hijab, or it could also lead to interactions with men as well as other taboo actions. Now, in case you didn't know, Saudi Arabia is the only country in the world that banned women from driving. But you see, this was the case up until last year. Now, the government used to claim that there was no law stopping women to drive. However, in Saudi Arabia, because the fatwas have the law of the land, it supersedes all other law. And just recently, June of 2018, Saudi Arabia actually lifted the ban for women to drive for the first time since the 1950s. Now for this next law, we visit the clothing and shopping stuff again. In Saudi Arabia, only women can work in lingerie stores. According to a report that was published by the Los Angeles Times, only women were allowed to work in lingerie shops. Now this law apparently is for women who would be uncomfortable buying underwear from men. I mean, like, I get it, you know, it's intimate apparel, you know, lingerie, underwear. I get it, yeah, women, it's not really a weird law, it's just, yeah, okay, it's one of those interesting ones, one of these laws that have that gray area of like being interesting. It's not really weird or controversial, I don't think. There's a law that has been completely controversial since I can remember. So all women in Saudi Arabia are to have a male wali, which is an official guardian. And this is usually a father, maybe an uncle or husband or even a brother. Now, women are to have their guardians consent for any major activities, like if they want to travel or get a passport, or even like getting divorced or getting married and signing other major contracts. But you see, in May of 2017, there was a small victory that was won when King Salman decreed that for some activities, let's say like going to university or getting a surgery, women didn't need the permission anymore from any kind of male relative or their husband. Now this next one has to do with clothing again. There's a lot of these interesting laws that deal with this. But in Saudi Arabia, women are forbidden from wearing clothes that show off their beauty or even wearing a lot of makeup. The law is very strict when it comes to the majority of women in Saudi Arabia, and most of them wear an abaya, which is a long cloak, and a headscarf. And the face doesn't necessarily need to be covered, but although if you're wearing clothes that may have a slit in it, showing off maybe a little too much skin, well, I don't know what is considered too much skin, because like no skin is really showing. You can't do that. As well as if you're seen with a lot of makeup on your face, you are going to be harassed by the religious police. Now the second last law, another controversial one dealing with women and men relationships. Women are actually required to limit the amount of time that they spend with men that they're not related to. Most major buildings and offices and universities and things like that have separate entrances for men and women. Also, public transportation as well as parks and beaches, well, a lot of them, they segregate male and female. Now, if you're caught violating this, it's seen as unlawful mixing and you could be criminally charged, whether you're male or female. And for a final law, for all you dentists out there who for some reason may be thinking of starting a practice in Saudi Arabia, well, if you're not from there, good luck. Being a dentist in Saudi Arabia is only exclusive to Saudi nationals. However, on the flip side, there are several other occupations and professions that are reserved to just non-Saudis only. Like if you work in a retail sales position, or if you're a human resources manager, you gotta not be a national of Saudi Arabia. Starting off with number 10, you cannot use English words for some Arabic words. The Pakistani government has approved a summary prohibiting the English translation of Islamic terms. Sacred Arabic names and words like Allah, Masjid, Salaat, and Rasul are now forbidden to be translated in English as God, Mosque, Prayer, and Prophet in that respective order. Now, did you know it's illegal to eat in public for a month every year? Now, this is because Ramadan is an important month for Muslims and considered to be very sacred in Islamic countries. Since Pakistan, of course, is an Islamic country, people are not allowed to eat in public in the month of Ramadan, even if they're non-Muslim. So that's where it gets a bit interesting there. Now, the tax education in a third world country where almost half of the population is struggling to get basic education, imposing taxes on education is a little too much, and Pakistan has been doing this for quite some time. If you spend more than 2 lakh rupees on education, a 5% tax will be imposed for it. Also, you cannot travel to Israel. So Pakistan has not recognized Israel as a separate state, which is why the Foreign Ministry of Pakistan does not actually allow Pakistanis to visit Israel on a Pakistani passport. The next law I want to talk about is transgenders cannot join the army. Now, there are millions of transgenders and cross-dressers in Pakistan. However, along with several other limitations to what they can do, they're also not able to join the Pakistani army. This is also a pretty interesting one. Sending spam messages is actually illegal. So sending someone a spam message, of course, is just super annoying, right? Now, if you're caught spamming anyone, guess what? You'll have to pay a fine of 1 million rupees. Now, the Prime Minister of Pakistan must be Muslim, but he doesn't actually need to be educated to be a Prime Minister. It's just that he has to be Muslim. The eligibility requirements do mention an adequate knowledge of Islamic teachings and practices, as well as he has to abstain from major sins, but it doesn't state any set of educational criteria to hold office of a Prime Minister. Now, this next law was super controversial. Before the Protection of Women Act in 2006, if you had been sexually assaulted, check this, you needed to produce 4 eyewitnesses in order to be proven as a victim. The Protection of Women Act in 2006 has tried to override this law by introducing the element of DNA evidence being admitted during any sort of sexual assault cases, but the issue still remains very controversial. Now, did you know that there's no issuance of a passport unless you declare Ahmadi community as non-Muslim? So until the year 1974, the Ahmadi community was considered a sect of Islam in Pakistan, which was later declared a non-Muslim community. And then this is why it is compulsory for every Pakistani to sign the statement on their passport form that says, I approve Ahmadi community as non-Muslim. And now for the final law I want to share with you is about uploading memes. So uploading a meme can land you behind bars, right? So you cannot post any sort of funny pictures or memes about any political leaders, regardless of how immature they may act sometimes. So like you can't be making fun of them. This is all due to the cybercrime law. So under the cybercrime law of Pakistan, section 17 and 18, you're not allowed to upload a meme online. You may want to be careful what you say about anybody in the government. So Russia's new criminal code actually expands the definition of treason, and now if you're a critic of the government, that can actually turn you into a traitor. So be careful what you say about the government. Also, as of July of 2014, there's a law that came into effect that bans the use of profanity in theaters and films and in other media. And like bloggers in Russia, they're actually forbidden to use any sort of profanity at all. And yeah, if you're found guilty, you face paying some fines. Now, did you know that it is illegal to drive a dirty car in the city of Chelyabinsk? So guys, hear this. Driving a dirty car can get you a fine of upwards to 2,000 rubles. That's about $62 US. There's also another rule in Russia where the patronym can only be placed immediately after the given name of somebody. So let's just say, for example, if your name was Ivan, Ivanov, Ivanovich, that would be completely unacceptable. And if you're not familiar with grammar, and just like me, I had to just Google it before I filmed this video, a patronym or a patronymic is actually the component of a personal name based on the given name of a person's father or other female ancestors. And for all you ladies out there that love lingerie, well, check this. The sale and import and production of lace panties is completely prohibited. So allegedly, lace underwear for women does not comply with the technical requirements that were adopted in Russia. Now, probably one of the most controversial laws in this episode is the anti-gay law. Now, this law prevents the distribution of non-traditional sexual relationships. And now it's said that Russia passed this law in order to keep the idea of non-traditional sexual relationships away from minors. Now, this law makes it illegal to equate straight and gay relationships, as well as distribute any sort of material that is on gay rights. So for all you bloggers out there that get more than 3,000 daily visitors and want to remain anonymous because of maybe the content that you're posting, well, guess what? You're not allowed to do that in Russia. Regulations that passed in 2014 actually require blogs that have over 3,000 daily visitors to actually register as a media outlet and give personal data and information. So if you want to remain anonymous, just make sure that your daily visitors don't exceed that number. Now here's an interesting one. President Obama, the former US president, he's actually banned from entering Chechnya. So Chechnya is a small Russian republic, and the former US President Barack Obama is actually really banned from entering the country. The president of Chechnya posted on Instagram that the ban of President Obama was in response to how the US acted in countries like Iraq and Syria. This one's kind of funny, but it comes at no surprise. So all memes that poke fun at political figures, well, of course, Vladimir Putin is definitely banned and outlawed in Russia. Yeah, Putin wasn't happy when he saw that clown face meme of himself. No, that didn't go too well. And the final strange, surprising, and controversial law that I want to share about Russia is that yoga has been banned in several parts. Why? Well, apparently officials feel that yoga actually promotes the spread of new religions and cults, and they want to really limit the types of religious cults and movements that pop up in Russia.